No, that was one that was going to, but they canceled that flight. But that one is real, that it could.
Have you got the predator? Hold on.
Yeah, it's longer than a football field. Longer than a football field by 3 feet.
Then they come home and this.
Yeah, that's right.
A little calm.
Get a pacifier. And they have one of the real capsules over here that really went to the moon, yeah.
Neil Armstrong was born in Washtenaw, Ohio, where his parents still live.
I watched the moon and I really feel that
Right in there.
Come on, Mike.